Every night, his voice echoes through the dark, calling her to the sea. No one else hears it, no one else knows, but she can never escape. Fisherman's Wife, submitted by Fazira. It's been more than 20 years now, but every night I still hear him. I thought time would make it stop, that the memory of his voice would fade like an old scar. But it hasn't. It's still there, as real as it was the night he drowned, echoing through the walls of our wooden house, carried on the salty breeze that drifts in from the sea. They say I'm mad. The villagers look at me differently now, pity in their eyes, their voices lowering to whispers whenever I walk past the market. Kaishan, dia tak dapat lupakan suami dia, they say. Poor woman, she can't forget her husband. But they don't know. They don't hear him like I do. His voice comes to me at night, always at night, when the air is still and the cats wander through the village, their eyes glowing in the dark like tiny lanterns. I see them sometimes, the stray cats that gather near the shore, looking out at the waves like they know something we don't. And then I hear him. Sayang, he calls, his voice soft, like he's standing right outside the door. Aku rindu, come to me. I freeze every time, the same as I did 20 years ago when they told me he was gone, swept away by the sea during the monsoon. At first, I thought it was my grief playing tricks on me. The heart does strange things when it's broken. But it wasn't my mind. I knew his voice too well. It wasn't in my head, it was outside, waiting. I tried to move on. For years, I tried. The villagers would introduce me to men from other kampungs, kind men who wanted to take care of me. But every single time, something happened. There was one, a fisherman from a nearby village. He was good to me, wanted to marry me. But every time we were alone, strange things would happen. The cats would gather, yowling at the windows, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. And I would hear him, his voice calling out from the sea, louder this time, angry. Dia bukan untuk kau. His voice would hiss through the wind, and my new suitor would get spooked, making excuses to leave. I gave up after a while. I couldn't fight him anymore. My husband, if he was still my husband, wouldn't let me go. Now I live alone, in the same house by the shore. The villagers have stopped trying to help, stopped suggesting I remarry. They know it's useless. I'm bound to him, to his voice, to the sea, but I wish I could make it stop. Sometimes I wonder if the sea will take me too. Maybe then I'll find peace. But until then, I hear him, every night. The nights are the worst. It always starts the same way. A gentle breeze drifts in from the sea, carrying the familiar scent of salt and fish. The sound of the waves lapping against the shore should be comforting, but it isn't. Not anymore. Not since the night he died. That night still haunts me. The villagers found his boat floating near the rocks, half broken, the nets tangled in a way that didn't make sense. They said it was the storm, the waves, that took him. But I've lived by the sea all my life. I know its moods, its rhythms. This wasn't a normal drowning. The cats sensed it first. I still remember how they gathered near the shore that night, sitting silently in a perfect row, their glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. I didn't think much of it at the time. Stray cats are always lurking about, looking for scraps. But now I know they were waiting. They knew what was coming. The first time I heard his voice was a week after the funeral. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, too tired to sleep, too heartbroken to care. The house was quiet, the only sound the creaking of the wooden beams as the wind blew in from the sea. And then I heard it. Sayang? It was soft, barely more than a whisper, but it was unmistakable. It was him. My heart leapt, my mind racing between disbelief and hope. I sat up, straining to hear it again, but there was nothing. Only the wind and the distant sound of the waves. I thought I had imagined it. I wanted to believe that it was just my grief playing tricks on me. But then it happened again, and again. Every night, his voice came to me, calling me, whispering my name. At first, I would run to the window, thinking he was outside, waiting for me. But there was never anyone there, only the sea, dark and endless, stretching out into the horizon. The cats, too, would be there, watching, their eyes glowing in the moonlight, their bodies still as statues. It wasn't long before the voice started changing. The soft whispers turned to angry hisses, the gentle calls replaced by demands. Kau tak boleh tinggalkan aku. You can't leave me. His voice would grow louder, more insistent, filling the small house with a presence I couldn't escape. One night, I tried to leave the house. I thought maybe if I stayed with my sister in the next village, it would stop. But as soon as I stepped out the door, the wind howled, the sky darkened, and the cats gathered, yowling and hissing at my feet. His voice was louder than ever, drowning out everything else. Balik! Balik! Come back! Come back! I ran back inside, my heart pounding in my chest, the door slamming behind me. The moment I was back in the house, the wind stopped, the cats quieted, and the voice, it was calm again, soft, as if nothing had happened. That was when I knew. I couldn't leave. I tried to move on. The villagers brought men, one after another, each one trying to fill the void he left behind. But none of them stayed. The moment they stepped into the house, strange things would happen. The lights would flicker, the cats would scratch at the walls, and his voice would fill the air, thick with anger. He wouldn't let me forget him. And so I stopped trying. I live alone now, in this house that still smells of him, of the sea and the life we once shared. The cats still come at night, their eyes glowing in the dark, watching me, waiting for something I can't understand. But it's his voice that keeps me here. It haunts me, echoes through the house, through my heart, reminding me that I'll never truly be alone. Sometimes I wonder if he's waiting for me to join him. Maybe that's why he hasn't let me go. Maybe the sea will take me too one day, and then I'll finally be with him. But until that day comes, I live with his memory, his voice, and the knowledge that no matter what I do, I'll never escape him. The years passed, but the haunting never faded. In fact, it grew worse. I stopped counting how many times I'd hear him. It was no longer just at night. Sometimes, in the early hours of dawn, when the first light of the sun barely touched the horizon, I'd hear his voice drifting through the cracks in the walls. Sometimes it was a whisper, sometimes it was clearer than ever, like he was standing right beside me. The cats, too, seemed to grow more agitated as the years wore on. They would scratch at the door, their yowls echoing in the night. There were moments when I'd find them perched on the windowsill, staring at me with eyes that seemed too knowing, too human. One night, as I sat by the kitchen table, the lamp flickering weakly in the dim room, I heard him again. Sayang. His voice was softer this time, more gentle, as though he was coaxing me, luring me toward the door. I'm waiting. I didn't want to move, but my body betrayed me. It was as if something was pulling me, guiding my feet toward the front door. My hand reached for the knob, trembling, but before I could open it, a gust of wind slammed it shut. The cats outside screamed. I could hear them scratching at the door, desperate to get inside. And then his voice shifted again, harsher now, more demanding. Kautak boleh tinggalkan aku. You cannot leave me. My heart raced. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair as I fell to the floor. The house seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. His voice filled the room, surrounding me, suffocating me with his presence. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Silence. Deafening silence. I lay there on the floor, staring up at the ceiling, my body trembling with fear. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I knew was that I had come too close to opening that door, too close to letting him in. The villagers don't come to my house anymore. They don't try to help, don't suggest that I remarry. They don't look me in the eye when I pass by the market. They're afraid. Afraid of me, afraid of what they think I've become. But they don't know. Every night, I still hear him. Every night, I feel the pull of the sea, the weight of his voice pressing down on me. Sometimes I wonder if it's better to give in, to walk into the waves like he did and join him in the depths. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I go to him, I'll never come back. That I'll become one of the stories the villagers tell their children to keep them away from the sea. And so I stay, alone in this house, listening, waiting, just like him.